Have you ever wondered about the majestic palaces that once stood as symbols of power and wealth, only to be lost to the ravages of time? What stories do they hold? Can you imagine walking through grand halls that were once the heart of empires? Today, we're diving into the mysteries of the 8 greatest lost palaces of the ancient world. Which one fascinates you the most? Let me know in the comments as we explore these forgotten wonders together. Palace of Whitehall. Imagine walking through the grand halls of the Palace of Whitehall, where centuries of British history unfolded. This majestic palace once stood as the largest in Europe and served as the residence for English monarchs, from Henry VIII all the way to William III. Whitehall was more than just a royal home. It was the heart of political life in England. This sprawling palace hosted some of the most important events in English history, like the execution of King Charles I in 1649, a moment that shook the nation. In 1698, disaster struck. A catastrophic fire ravaged the palace, destroying most of its grandeur, and the royal residence was reduced to ashes. All that remains today is the banqueting house, the only structure that survived the inferno. This grand hall still stands in central London as a testament to the palace's former glory. Walking through its doors, you can almost feel the presence of kings and queens who once graced its rooms. It's hard to believe that such a majestic structure, where history was made, is now a shadow of its former self. But isn't that what makes the Palace of Whitehall so intriguing? It's a reminder that nothing, no matter how grand, is immune to the ravages of time. Nonsuch Palace. The story of Nonsuch Palace is a tale of ambition, splendor, and eventual loss. Built by the extravagant Henry VIII in the 16th century, this palace was intended to be the jewel in England's architectural crown. Nonsuch was a palace like no other, an opulent masterpiece designed to awe all who saw it. Its unique design incorporated Renaissance elements, setting it apart from other royal residences of the time. Henry VIII spared no expense in its construction, and the palace quickly became a symbol of his power and wealth. Unfortunately, Nonsuch's reign was brief. The palace was never fully completed in Henry's lifetime, and after his death, it saw little attention from subsequent monarchs. By the late 17th century, the palace had fallen into neglect and was eventually demolished in the 18th century. Today, no physical remnants remain, but the memory of Nonsuch Palace lingers, captured in historical paintings and sketches. The story of Nonsuch is a reminder that even the grandest creations can be lost, swallowed up by time and changing fortunes. It leaves us wondering what other magnificent palaces of the past are waiting to be uncovered. Palace of Placentia. Nestled on the banks of the River Thames in Greenwich, the Palace of Placentia once stood as a symbol of Tudor royal power and elegance. This magnificent palace was the birthplace of 2 of England's most famous monarchs, Henry VIII and Elizabeth I. Can you imagine the historical significance of this place? It was here, in the shadow of its impressive Tudor architecture, that the seeds of 2 of the most transformative reigns in English history were planted. Placentia, originally built by Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester in the 15th century, became the favorite residence of several kings and queens. Despite its importance, the palace's fate was sealed in the early 17th century. After falling into neglect, it was abandoned, and parts of the palace were slowly dismantled. By the mid-1600s, the once glorious palace was little more than a distant memory. Today, all that remains of the Palace of Placentia are a few scattered ruins and the Greenwich Observatory, which stands as a proud reminder of the area's royal heritage. Though its walls no longer echo with royal footsteps, the legacy of the palace still lives on in the history of the English monarchy. It's fascinating to think that such a vital part of England's royal past could be so easily forgotten, but in the fading shadows of history, we are left to wonder what might have been if Placentia had survived the tides of time. Whitehall Palace. Whitehall Palace, the heart of royal England for centuries, was far more than just a residence for monarchs. It was the center of political power and the stage for some of the most dramatic events in English history. Stretching over a sprawling 23 acres, it was the largest palace in Europe during its time, and it saw the likes of Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, and James I walk its hallowed halls. But Whitehall's real claim to fame lies not in its grandeur, but in the dark, tragic events that unfolded there. Perhaps most infamous is the execution of King Charles I in 1649, which took place in front of the banqueting house, one of the only parts of the palace that survives today. That moment in history marked the end of the monarchy's absolute power and set the stage for England's turbulent civil war. However, it wasn't just political upheaval that plagued Whitehall. Constant renovations, fires, and even battles left their mark on the palace, gradually eroding its beauty. In 1698, a devastating fire destroyed much of Whitehall, leaving it in ruins. The banqueting house still stands, but everything else has been lost to time. It's hard to imagine the palace's former grandeur just by looking at the quiet remnants of what's left today. Still, the echoes of its royal history can almost be felt, urging us to ask, what stories could those walls tell if they could speak? Dunfermline Palace. Dunfermline Palace, once a royal retreat nestled in the picturesque Scottish countryside, holds the kind of history that stirs the imagination. Situated in the ancient town of Dunfermline, this palace was the favored residence of many Scottish kings, including the birthplaces of Charles I and other royal figures. It was a place of royal luxury and power, where Scotland's monarchs made significant political and personal decisions. The grand structure that once stood here must have been awe-inspiring, with its towering walls and majestic halls where kings and queens held court. Sadly, after 1603, when the English crown united with the Scottish throne, the palace slowly fell into disrepair. By the 17th century, the palace had been largely abandoned, and what remained was left to the ravages of time and neglect. Today, the only remnants of this once stately palace are the ruins of its kitchen and cellars, hidden in plain sight among the trees of a peaceful park. But as you stand in the quiet of the surrounding grounds, it's easy to imagine the royal figures who once walked these halls, their footsteps echoing through the centuries. The story of Dunfermline Palace is a poignant reminder that even the most powerful places can fade into obscurity, swallowed up by the relentless passage of time. Bishop's Waltham Palace. Bishop's Waltham Palace, once a center of political intrigue and royal luxury, is a fascinating chapter in England's medieval history. Located in Hampshire, this palace served as the residence for the bishops of Winchester, and was a favored hunting lodge for English monarchs. Its grandeur was unmatched during the medieval period, with its sprawling grounds, fortified walls, and elaborate structures that served as both a home and a place of governance. The palace was at the heart of royal power and influence, where significant political decisions were made that affected the fate of the nation. However, after the English Civil War, Bishop's Waltham Palace saw a slow decline. It was severely damaged and looted, its fine furnishings and decor stripped away, and its ruins became a source of materials for building nearby structures. By the 18th century, the palace was no more than a memory, its once stately appearance reduced to rubble. Today, visitors can explore the impressive ruins, including the remains of the Great Hall and the chapel, where echoes of its past still linger. Standing among the ruins, it's hard not to feel the weight of history, reminding us that even the most magnificent palaces can be reduced to whispers in the wind. The story of Bishop's Waltham serves as a powerful reminder that time's grip is unyielding, and nothing, no matter how grand, can escape its toll. Clarendon Palace. Clarendon Palace, a royal residence shrouded in mystery and historical significance, once stood as a symbol of English grandeur. Built in the 12th century, this palace became the favorite retreat for several monarchs, including King Henry I and King Henry II. It was more than just a royal home. It was a place of power and decisions that would shape England's future. Clarendon Palace witnessed the creation of pivotal historical moments, such as the introduction of trial by jury, which laid the groundwork for modern British law. But as time marched on, the palace, once a beacon of regal splendor, began to fade. The decline of Clarendon began during the English Civil War, when it was left vulnerable to looting and neglect. Over the centuries it fell into disrepair, and by the 17th century, the once great palace was abandoned. Much of it was demolished, with materials repurposed for other buildings. Today all that remains of Clarendon Palace are a few ruins, barely visible among the sprawling fields that now surround it. Yet when you stand there, it's easy to imagine the royal courts that once held sway over the country, and the weight of decisions that were made in its halls. Clarendon Palace's quiet remains remind us that even the most important landmarks in history can be lost to time, and perhaps even more poignantly, that history is often erased by the very forces it once shaped. Palace of Persepolis. Deep in the heart of modern-day Iran lies the once glorious ruins of Persepolis, a monumental symbol of the Achaemenid Empire's power and grandeur. Persepolis, often called the City of the Persians, was the ceremonial capital of one of the world's greatest ancient empires. Built by Darius I in the 6th century BCE, this palace complex was a stunning display of Persian architecture, adorned with exquisite reliefs and towering columns that spoke to the empire's wealth, power, and culture. It wasn't just a palace, it was the heart of Persian diplomacy and a place where the empire's greatest achievements were celebrated. However, despite its splendor, Persepolis met a tragic end. In 330 BCE, Alexander the Great and his army laid siege to the city, and after a brutal invasion, the palace was set ablaze. The flames ravaged the magnificent structures, leaving behind a vast, silent ruin. Today, what remains of Persepolis is a haunting reminder of the empire's once great majesty. The ruins still stand in the Iranian desert, drawing visitors from around the world who marvel at the intricate carvings and the sprawling ruins of what was once a palace unlike any other. Persepolis serves as a powerful reminder that even the most magnificent palaces, built to last through the ages, can fall victim to the ravages of war and time. Yet, its legacy remains embedded in the stones and carvings, immortalizing the empire's glory for future generations to discover. That's a wrap on our journey through the 8 greatest lost palaces of the ancient world. Which palace intrigued you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that bell icon so you never miss out on our future explorations. Make sure to subscribe to DwellScape for more captivating content. Your thoughts and support mean a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.